Welcome back! My name is Baller Scuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1982. Today, we're going to talk about Ultima 2. The story of Ultima 2 takes us back to Richard Garriott. We have talked about Richard Garriott before. He was the creator of Akalabeth and, of course, the original Ultima. Richard Garriott was still a student at the University of Texas when he worked on the programming for Ultima 2. As a result, it would take almost 2 years to create the game. Ultima 2 was programmed in the assembly coding language. Garriott had to learn the assembly programming language before he could program the game. Garriott learned the language from Tom Luers, who had used the language to create Appleoids, a clone of Asteroids for the Apple II. Learning the language took about a month. Ultima 2: The Revenge of the Enchantress is a computer role-playing game. It takes place after the events of the original Ultima, which was renamed Ultima 1: The First Age of Darkness. In the game, the player plays as an adventurer who travels the world, gaining experience, equipment, and knowledge in an attempt to save the world in much the same fashion as the first game. Ultima 2's story is actually a direct result of the actions of the first game. So if you have not seen or played the first game and do not want its plot spoiled, now would be the time to stop watching. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video. For those that have stayed, let's read the story of Minax as it appears in the game's manual. The story of Minax. When the arch-evil Mondain was finally overcome by a gallant knight, was it you? Rumors abounded. The most fearful one was that, at the time of his demise, Mondain had been training an apprentice, a protege with amazing, powerful, natural, magical abilities. The rumor was squelched when colleagues of his conqueror entered his castle and found no sign of anyone. Life during Mondain's time of power was terrible. Never had a Prince of Darkness wielded so brutal a stick. Mondain was a disease on the landscape. He reigned over all the evils ever known, and more. He brought them all to fruition on Earth and its environs at once. He enjoyed seeing Earth's well-meaning humanoids squirm. With the destruction of Mondain and his all-powerful gem of evil, those horrors ceased. When nothing came of the rumor of a potential successor to this cancer, people were only too eager to accept its falsehood and throw off their cloaks of fear. The evils of the past were gone with their creator and perpetrator. At last, the world was beautiful again, and life was to be enjoyed, savored. So it was for several years, long enough for a child to grow to adulthood. They were exciting years, for the strange appearance of the Time Doors opened a great era of new learning, a renaissance of timelessness. Creativity burst forth and new works proliferated. No one wanted to notice when the disease began again. But so it did. First there was a single lost orc a farmer stumbled upon. What was it? Whence came it? Scientists knew in their secret hearts that the orc was the work of a sorcerer. And had that sorcerer been a benevolent one who had created the orc by accident, he would have come forward. But they didn't want to know it, so they put it aside. The orc was too sick and hurt to fight when it was first found. When it was sufficiently recovered and it had begun to assert its learned wrathful ways, it discovered a conundrum in its weak little head. These creatures had saved its life. It grasped that much, and it didn't want to hurt them. Because the little lone orc had never been missed, it was not controlled by magical influences. It persisted with a pleasant benevolence. All the good orcs we see in towns and villages today have descended from this one unusual orc. But the good people of Earth should have realized its import those years ago. More and more, the evils of darkness began to shower Earth. By the time the people acknowledged it, the evil was too powerful, too widespread to be overcome directly. Already its perpetrator was stronger and more wretched than any previous Prince of Darkness, and had grown too proud to keep silent. Thus was the name of Minax, Enchantress of Evil, made known. She was a master of moving objects spiritually from the age of 3, and proudly apprenticed to Mondain at age 11. She had exceeded to many times his power. The world she created made Mondain's reign look prosperous and carefree. For Minax was not content to spread evil among the good, causing misery and pain. She preferred to sow seeds of evil in the good, and thus set the good against good, leaving no person untouched. Destruction abounded, and guilt and self-hatred tainted the earth. The climax was the devastation of 2111, Minax's greatest triumph to date, when ancient civilizations, born to love of beauty, of wisdom and reason, turned upon one another, and in their vicious anger and hate, destroyed almost all of the very earth that had nurtured them. If it were not for the time doors, you would not be here now. Only the ability to move in time enabled any living thing to survive, as far as is known. Since that awful day, survivors have devoted themselves to grasping the meaning of the event, and to rethinking the concept of time and its dimensions. This dedicated group has researched, experimented, and hypothesized in the hope of finding some means of using the time doors to reverse time, or to change a cause and reverse its effect. Throughout their studies, 2 complementary theories persisted. One was that evil was derived from a single, overpowering source, which was Minax. The other was that the total elimination of the root cause could reverse its effects from all time, as if all immediacy was the present, and all else was the future. That group which Lord British chairs extends its deepest respect and admiration to you for heroically volunteering for this extremely dangerous expedition into time. Know before you go that, whether you succeed or fail, you have their gratitude and love. And if, know when, you succeed, you will return to the present as it might have and should have been. Those in this small group assure you that they will never forget your great deed. But you should be aware that by the very nature of your success, that future generations prospering in the sunlit glory of the universe that you have made are apt to forget. Your satisfaction must be self-sufficient. If you understand all this and are still willing to venture forth, then go now with their abundant well-wishes and the knowledge that their thoughts will be with you ceaselessly until you return. Farewell. May the force of good surround you throughout your trek. Why are you doing this? What kind of adventurer are you anyway, that you're still sitting here reading this legend instead of entering Ultima 2? Begone and boot! That is the story of Minax. For the release of the game, Richard Garriott turned to Sierra Online. We have talked about Sierra Online before, when we have referred to them as online systems. The founders, Ken and Roberta Williams, have been responsible for Mystery House and The Wizard and the Princess. In 1982, Online Systems, who had been using the name Sierra on many of their materials, officially changed the name of the company to Sierra Online, named after the Sierra Mountains near their headquarters. Sierra Online published Ultima 2 on August 24, 1982 for Apple II computers. Released with the game would be the manual, as well as a large map. The large cloth map shows the world of Ultima 2, which is Earth. The manual and the map are almost required materials in order to beat the game. The game would also be released with Sierra's new Spyrodisc system. The Spyrodisc system is a copy protection system designed to prevent unlawful reproductions of the game, which was prevalent at the time. It involved writing the data on the floppy disk in spiral patterns instead of concentric circles. At the time, this copy protection system could not be beaten. However, Richard Garriott was against using this system for Ultima 2. That is the backstory to Ultima 2: The Revenge of the Enchantress. With that now told, it's time to play the game for ourselves. And here we are in the game. As you can see, Origin proudly presents. We will be talking about Origin at some later point. Part 2 of the #1 best-selling fantasy role-playing game by Lord British. Ultima 2: Revenge of the Enchantress. Now, this version is technically the 1989 version of the game. This is one of the easier ones to find. Not a lot of the originals are available anymore. So it's one of the games that we are going to be doing with a later version simply because of ease of access to it, but also because there is a bit of a graphical upgrade to this one, and that's about it. So it is fairly representative of the original game. There are a couple differences here and there. We will talk about that as we continue. This is a DOS version of the game. As you can see, the original DOS version was released in 1983. So it's not necessarily based on the original Apple II, but it is fairly representative of the Apple II version of the game. I also want to mention that we're probably not going to get too far into the gameplay today, if we get to it at all. It kind of depends on how much time we spend on character creation, which is pretty important to this game, I would say. It's more important to Ultima 2 than it is to Ultima 1, and we'll talk about why in a bit. This demonstration that we're about to watch does assume that you did read the manual. So let's take a look at the demonstration. We'll talk about, I believe, one aspect of the manual that we didn't get to in our introduction. But let's take a look at what the game has to demonstrate for us. Battle strange creatures across the face of the earth. As you can see, very similar to what we saw in our gameplay for the first game there. Search for clues in careless words spoken at the local pub, which is Swashbuckler's Pub and Pizza. Somebody went forward in time and brought pizza back. Traverse deep, dark, deadly dungeons and tall, terrifying towers, now with color and alliteration. Travel throughout the galaxy to the planets of our solar system. That's a part that we didn't talk about. We will be traveling throughout the solar system. I'll visit all the planets. We don't have to, but I'm going to. And conquer time itself to battle Minax the Enchantress. By the way, when I say all the planets, that does include Pluto, which should count in, 1983 and 1989. All right, so that is the demonstration. Before we get into the game, we are going to have to create the character. This is actually one of the more important parts of the game, as it was in Ultima 1 and pretty much most of the RPGs that let us create a character to this point. We are going to spend quite a bit of time here. So let's go to the character creation screen. We only have to create the one character. Officially, the character is still known as the Stranger, but we'll talk about why it's known as that later. For now, it's just whatever name we give it, and then they just don't address the name of the character in the story. But we start with 90 points to distribute. It's not random. You always start with 90 points. I should say that you are going to want to map out your character first and then try to figure out what points to distribute. So, for instance, I will be using a female elf cleric. It is one of the more basic ones to start with. It is one of the easier ones to deal with, so that's the one that I'm going to go with. It's what most people seem to recommend for, well, at least the skill level that I have, the experience that I have. Female elf cleric seems to be the way to go. There's another way, another line of thought that says that you want to go with a wizard so you can deal a lot of damage. And then there are the people that go for fighter because that's apparently the fastest way to get through the game. But we are going to go with a female elf cleric because I want to show things off. That's kind of my play style. So we will start by looking at strength. Strength is going to determine two things. It determines how much damage you deal. That does not necessarily affect accuracy. It doesn't affect accuracy. It's just when you land a shot, how much damage do you deal? And the second thing that it determines is the armor that you can wear. If you want heavy armor like plate mail or chain mail, you know, the metal armor, you're going to want a lot of strength. We are not necessarily going that route, at least not at the beginning of the game, so we are not going to put a lot of points into strength. I should point out that if you are playing the original Apple II version, I believe this is fixed in all later versions though, you cannot raise your strength inside the game. So you're going to need either 29 or 31 points of strength now. So that eats up a lot of your points, as you might imagine. The reason for that is that you need one of the two strongest armors in the game in order to win. You can't beat the game without equipping them. So if you don't have enough strength to equip them, you could go through the whole game and then be screwed over at the end. We are playing a version where we can raise our strength in the game, so I don't have to worry about that for now. We're going to put in 12 points as opposed to around 30 if you're playing the Apple II version. Next up, we have agility. Agility also does two different things. Agility is your accuracy stat. It's going to determine whether you hit the enemy when you attack them. That you're going to want high. If you're anything like me, I would rather deal low damage consistently than high damage every once in a while. So I want a high agility stat. The other thing that agility does it determines what weapons you can equip. The higher your agility, the more weapons that you can equip. So that's something that I'm going to want a lot of. I'm going to put 29 points into that. We'll talk about bonuses in a little bit. Stamina is up next. Stamina determines how much damage you receive when you get hit. Once again, it's not necessarily going to determine when you get hit, but when you get hit, it'll determine how much damage is inflicted on you. We don't need a lot of points here for now. We're just going to put 10 points and we'll figure out something else to mitigate our damage later. Next up is charisma. Charisma is a little different in this game than it was in the first game. In Ultima 2, you cannot sell anything. Nobody buys anything from you. So charisma in Ultima 1 determined how much money you would get when you sold things. In Ultima 2, it could do that, but you don't sell anything, so you'll never find out. I'm sure somebody's looked into the programming and it probably just doesn't exist, but what charisma does in this version is it's going to determine, along with intelligence, how much of a discount you receive when buying things in shops. So we are going to want to put points here. We do want a discount. It'll make things easier for us to be able to get things cheaper. Money is very important in this one, especially when you start. So we're going to put 19 points there. Now, you might be able to figure out how I'm going to distribute the last two stats here. The minimum that we have to do is 10, so 10 points per stat. So you can easily figure out how I'm going to deal with it from here. Wisdom is up next. This will determine the success chance you have of casting a spell. Now, this is not necessarily important, and I would love to put 0 here if they would let me, but they're not going to let me. So I have to put 10 here. I should point out that there are only two types of classes. I guess it just says types. The fighter, cleric, wizard, and thief. Only the cleric and wizard can cast spells. So if you're going for a fighter or a thief, then you don't really need any wisdom, but I'm going to need at least 10 points here. So you don't really need wisdom. You don't really need intelligence either. It combines with charisma to figure out what discount you receive in shops. And for wizards, intelligence will determine how much damage your spell deals. The spell will be known as Magic Missile. We're not going to necessarily deal with that because we are not going to go for a wizard, but if you are, intelligence might be the way to go. We're going to put 10 points here, and we're going to call it a day. So that's all my points. Now the question is about bonuses. Now the male, the gender, the sex of the character, male or female, is going to determine some stats here. If you choose male, it gives you a bonus 5 points to strength. If you go with female, it gives you a bonus 10 points to charisma. So I'm going to go with female simply because they're the stronger characters. And boom, there we go. I'm up to 29 points of charisma. Now, if I had my way, I would get 34 points of charisma, but I don't have my way. Because I needed 10 points in intelligence and wisdom, and we'll get there. Race. There's a couple different options here. You can go with an elf. We'll start with human. Human gives you 5 points to intelligence, but that's not something that I care about. An elf, which is what we are going to choose, gives you 5 points to agility. That will make up the remaining 5 points that I wanted there anyway. If you go with a dwarf, that'll give you 5 more points to strength. And if you go with hobbit, it will give you 10 points to wisdom. But I don't necessarily care about that. We're going to go with 2. I want to be an elf. All right, so now we have type, which is basically your class. The 4 that are available are fighter. If you choose a fighter, in most versions of the game, it'll give you 15 points to strength. If you're playing the Commodore 64 version, which is now a name I can actually say because we talked about it, if you're playing the Commodore 64 version, it only gives you 10 points of strength instead of 15. Everything else gives you 15. Commodore 64 only gives you 10. If you are playing as a cleric in all versions, that one thing is the only difference between many of the versions. If you're playing a cleric, which we are, it'll give you 10 points of wisdom. So I would have loved to do 0 wisdom and let the cleric kind of figure it out later, but they didn't really let me do that. So we're going to have to choose 20 points of wisdom, but I'll get over it. And then if you are a wizard, it gives you a bonus 10 points to intelligence, which makes sense. They need that. And then if you are a thief, it's 10 points to agility. But once again, if you are trying to, cast spells, especially as a cleric, more defensive spells, I would recommend a magic user for this. Until you know what you're doing, at least. So we're going to go with cleric. And then I can choose my name. It doesn't feel right to put Baller Scuba on a female name, but we're going to go for it anyway, if they let me. They do. All right, we are good there. Satisfactory. Not really, but I will accept it. I don't think they'll let me edit the way that I want them to let me edit, so we're just going to have to accept this. So once again, we got a lot of bonus points from that. Things are fairly set up the way that I would want. I want more charisma, to be honest, and I want less intelligence. Less wisdom and intelligence. And technically stamina we could do without, but I think this is good for now. So let's actually head in. We will head in a little bit here as it takes us back to the original screen here. Now we can play a game, and we will select our character. As you can see, we are a cleric, hence the cross that we have. So we have passed. We want to go northwest as much as we can. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that. That is very loud in my ears. It's just a little kind of buzzing sound anytime I move. We want to go northwest as best as we can. It's a little tricky here. All right, we want to go across this isthmus here. This is actually the bridge between Alaska and Russia, if you're looking at a world map here. All right, we're going to try to avoid you. I don't want to fight here. Oops. We're doing okay for now. Yeah, I don't want to fight if I don't have to. Where is the town? Can I fight you? Let's try to fight. Attack north. Miss. All right, I hit him. He backed off. He's running away. That's fine. Where is this town? It should have been around here already. All right, we're going to have to backtrack. It didn't even say what it was, did it? Miss. Miss. Come on. There we go. We got a hit. Yeah, I think he's too far away for me to hit him again. Got another hit. You gonna run? Come on. All right, hit him again. Yeah, now I'm chasing you down. Got another hit. All right, are we getting it? I mean, we're landing some of these. There we go. All right, I got 11 gold and 4 experience. You notice that my HP has not increased. I better keep moving. HP, it says that now instead of hits, so we got a little bit of an upgrade, I would say. And we have food. If you remember, the first game is very similar to that. Yeah, they're not going to let me go southwest. I think I need to go right there. All right, let's see if I can't deal with them. They're hitting me, but I'm not hitting them. All right, got one hit. There we go. How many hits does it take to kill them? All right, 15 gold and 1 experience. And we'll keep on hitting them. Come on now. All right, you gonna run? If you're gonna run and not hit me, then I'm just gonna take the free shots. Wow, this is loud in my ears. I hope that you guys don't hear it. I will double check the volume. But usually, this one you guys don't. All right, so I'm up to 6 experience. I have quite a bit of gold, 433. Got 7 gold and 1 experience for that fight. And we can enter. All right, so we have made it to town Linda. This is the important thing. This is where we wanted to be. So we can transact with people here. I have to do it very fast. Guard says, pay your taxes. I say that at work too. And it just says, pay your taxes. And we have made it to town. Now that we have made it to town, I believe that we are good for now. And we can try to move on from here another time. So we are going to end for today, and I will pick up back here next time. That is going to do it for this part of Ultima 2. My name is Baller Scuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. I hope you laughed. I hope you learned. And I hope to see you next time when we actually start doing some constructive things. Thanks for watching.